So it's getting recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So our first is like expression add operators. A string is given that contains digits from 0 to 9 and a target value, and we are supposed to return all the possibilities to add the binary operators between the digits so that they evaluate to target value. Let's say if the string this is given and the target is this, so all the possible use this and try to get your target. So these are two possible ways by which you can get your target. And same goes for this with star and plus, and you can concatenate digits also, and then so 10 minus 5 that way. But and here again for the 0, same thing. And adding constraint, it will contain only your digits and length will be less than equal to 10. Yeah, so what should be our approach here?
Okay, so digits can also be concatenated, right?
Pardon?
We can have multi-digit numbers also, right?
Yeah.
Initially I thought like we can take only one digit as one number. If in that case it would be easy, right? Like we take one digit and then add do all three operations for that and call like a DFS, like plus minus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it won't be easy because we have to
Yeah.
take the precedence thing also in consideration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but actually we could start with only the simple operators, right? So the way they say. So when we have something very complex,
Okay.
so if we start with just one, a plus, right? Plus or minus, and it is similar to the one what we were discussing yesterday, correct?
Yeah, looks like
Yeah.
But
So
sorry, one problem is like with the multiplication because it has more priority than addition, which has done previously. So in that way, we need to consider to do that first.
right. So if we take okay, if we take first, we can take one digit, right? And then we can keep on incrementing, that we can do. So
Yeah.
the first number, if we start with any number of digit, and then we actually apply either plus or minus, and then whatever is the remaining string, you do it again recursively.
okay. Yeah.
So because in the recursion again you will have you'll start from one digit to n number of digits, right, to the end. And if you do that, that should be a normal DFS, what Dilip was saying, right, earlier.
Yeah, try every like with single digit and then two and then
Correct. So that should be very straightforward, right?
But how
at
can
max
you?
and minus one digits only you can use, right?
1, 2, how much?
N minus one, because there has to be some operand on
Yeah,
both the sides for the operator, right? So
right.
concatenation will be only up to n minus one. Up to this
Okay.
point only we can oh yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, what was Harshit saying?
So I'm saying that how can you ignore the multiplication operator?
Yeah, I'm not saying ignore, but at least if we do it this way, then we can actually build on that and use multiplication also, because multiplication has more precedence
Precedence.
over plus and minus. So I was thinking like just do the very basic way how to actually start with. We can do that this way, and then actually then we can build on using this for multiplication also. Yeah, I know multiplication would be slightly difficult though.
Yeah, we'll have to take into account our previous operand and the previous value so that we can subtract that and then multiply our current one.
Hmm.
So from total, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so when it is multiplication, see what will happen is either the previous value will be positive value or the negative value, right?
Right.
So we just want to know what was the previous value. We don't want to know the sum actually, right? So we may have to store two things. One is whatever was our actually sum or whatever you can call till this time, and a previous value if it is a plus and minus operations earlier in the previous recursion. So if they were a plus or minus, we just want that value. So we can use that value in our multiplication and multiply that those positive or negative values with our current value if it is a multiplication operation in this current uh, DFS node, right?
Okay. Yeah. So
And
you'll
and
be.
then Mhm.
I was saying each time which when you compute, you'll be subtracting it from your target. Is it?
No, I don't
Subtracting or
want to.
adding?
Right, right. So maybe we can have two what do you say, two parameters, right? So one will be something like one parameter will be P1, other will be P2. Okay, in this P1, when it is a plus sign, okay, and if our current value is val, so we will just store as val, right? In this case, and for P2, we will say, okay, whatever was our okay, it will be like P2 plus val, something like that, or P1 plus val, right? And if it was negative, we'll just store this negative value, right? And then we'll have to actually add, maybe it is P1, I'm not sure though. Okay. So P1 plus val. Okay. But when we have actually multiplication, so we can use this P1, right? And then multiply by a current val. This would P1 and multiply by our current val. And here this will be our same value, right?
So
Our
what is
same
P
P2.
P1 doing here? Like I didn't get.
Well, actually, P1 is just whatever we are having a current value, right?
Okay.
So if whenever we actually break down the string, right, like for 1, 2, 3, so we just store 1 in the first case, then in the second case, in the second case we store 2 here, and in the third case we store 3. Okay. So for the next time when we are actually in the recursion and we are having we encounter actually we actually go with the asterisk one multiplication. At that time we can use this val, right?
Yeah.
And then we can multiply so that will be P1 in that case, so that multiplied by current val, so you can form this relationship, right? Okay, so that
Yeah.
way the precedence remains same. And this, and then we will have to have another variable for P2, something like that, then we can do. And when we actually add this at the end, we can say P1 plus P2, and actually compare if it is equal to target. So we'll have to have two different terms to compare.
Yeah.
So are we not keeping track of the last operand?
Last operand, you mean to say what was the last value, right? Means either 1, 2, 3, not
That
the
last,
operand.
the last digit we have encountered.
Yeah,
That's the
actually, this is what I was thinking about. We can actually keep that in P1.
okay.
So val itself means whenever whatever we actually come up with, right, in this particular one, right, if it is one. So for the next recursion, we actually pass this in this one in this P1. So if it is a negative, then we actually make this val as negative val and this pass to this P1. So when I come for my current multiplication, and if it is a multiplication, I will use that P1 and multiply by that current value, whatever I'm having. Like in this 3 2 case, I already get 3 from top, right? That is, my P1 will be 3 in this case, and my val will be 2, whatever I just extracted. Right, so 3 into 2 will be 6, and this 2 will be in P2 here. So only multiplication will have to take care of all these things, but for addition and subtraction, it might remain same.
Same, yeah.
Okay. So the way I get this is, for example,
Mhm.
we are trying to form this expression 2 plus 3 into 2, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I just take out 2 first and then I add 3. Next, I see a multiplication operand. So I have to give this multiplication operand more precedence, more preference. So first, out of the value I have computed, that would be 5, I would subtract 3, and then that leftover, so 5 minus 3 equal to 2. So 2 plus 3 into my current value. I mean, I was trying to deal with this that way.
Okay. That seems to be good one. Uh, so you are taking example 1, 2, 3, correct? The first one.
No, this one. Just a minute. I'll go ahead.
Second one.
How do I choose it?
Maybe you can annotate here.
Yeah, yeah.
This one I was saying. So I have this 2,
Mm-hmm.
3, and again 2. So let's say I am going by the addition route first. So let's say I'm keeping a value also as my running answer. So when I reach to this 2, my value would be 5, right?
5.
But
With the
2 plus
last
3,
two, right? Okay.
yeah,
2 plus 3, 5. Uh-huh.
this thing. Now I see a multiplication here. I mean, I'm trying to explore one of the optional multiplication. So what I do is, I first subtract this current, like my last operand, which is 3, from this value. So I get 2 here, and the next thing I do is I multiply these two, my last operand and my current operand. So this gives me 6. Now 6 and plus 2 would be my answer if I go by the multiplication route. That is,
Yeah.
But what is the significance for subtracting 3?
so I have to restore my previous answer, right? So I had incorrectly added this 3 to 2.
Okay. But you
Like
are
in,
assuming that you have already added 2 plus 3, right? But what
Right.
if you had already multiplied 3? So 2 into 3, and then you are here. So how would you take care of that?
So that would be like one of the options. So when I try to fix some operator here, so I'll check what is my last operator I have used. So if it's a multiplication, then it's all right. If it's plus or a minus, then I would do this. Like if it's plus, I would subtract my previous operand and then do my operation and then add the leftover result, which is 2 in this case.
Okay. Okay, so you are storing the previous operator also.
Yeah,
Okay, that
previous
makes
operator,
sense.
previous operator.
I think that makes sense, yeah. Yeah, multiplication is only the difficult part here. So if you are handling it that way, I think that should work. Yeah, and it looks pretty clean also, because in my case, actually, you have to be very careful with the multiplication, and it's very difficult to even understand it later. Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to share your,
I don't have the implementation. So this
okay.
is the complete one. I was trying
Oh,
it out, but this last case, this multiple digit case is something I'm not able to handle yet.
okay.
Uh,
I went to the solution. Yeah, please click here.
Yeah, Dilip.
so even I have the code, but it's failing for some really big test case. But I think I don't know why it's failing, but show that.
So you were also implementing the same what Harshit was saying.
Yeah, same way. I do the for the multiplication the same thing, and yeah, same way.
Yeah, in that case, I only think, because sometimes it is all dependent on the previous to previous, whatever the calculations you have done that time, right? So because you can store only the operator and your previous value at one single time, but there might be a big, larger test case which had a number of operations done before that. So that might be some difficult way to take care of it, right?
One thing I can say is like you don't in case of like consecutive multiplications, you don't need to worry about that. Like what
Correct.
saying,
Mhm.
you don't need even to do that with the check whether the previous was addition or subtraction. Even if you don't consider that, it works. Because what you're trying to do is you're subtracting and adding with multiplication.
Mhm.
So the negative and positive will be cancelled, and you're again multiplying new value with the older value.
Right.
How do
But
you
if you
restore?
had something like this, 2 into 3 plus, okay, again 2 into 3 plus 2 into 3. In that case, suppose if you are here, right? Okay, and your own, this was the multiplications, you handle that. But
Yeah.
what about the previous to previous case? Oh, it
Uh,
just went away.
previous to previous case is like 2 plus 2.
Yeah, maybe
No,
if you are here, okay, if you just here, okay, instead of that.
Okay.
So now you are
Yeah.
at 3, right? So this is 2.
Yeah. Okay. So let's assume that the value up to this point is something like some x value. So what you're trying to do is you're subtracting the last previous value, which is 3. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 3, and you're adding the new value, which is like this 3 into this. Okay, is it addition or subtraction? Like, what you want?
Yeah,
multiplication.
so this is correct. Till here you are doing right. So if you had a value here, and now you have actually passed on plus was a previous operator, and then you had okay. So you are multiply and 3, right? Okay, that is one there. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like if it is addition, then we don't need to consider. Like we already did, we add plus 2.
Okay, okay.
Multiplication, then what we are doing is we are multiplying by 2. So, like basically, if you see this, um, so where so mm, this is I was thinking like minus 3 and plus 3 will cancel and we're multiplying into 2, but it won't happen, right?
No, first we'll multiply.
Yeah.
First
So
multiplier, x plus 3.
yeah, so okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You cannot ignore that plus or minus
Okay.
part.
So if it is plus or minus, we can have the previous as -1 or -2 or +2, which can be subtracted. So it will be the counter operation of that. But multiplication, yeah, as you said, we need to maintain the previous operation and see. Maybe we need to divide and see.
To restore that.
Divide, there is no
No, but
division.
yeah, in this, no, he's saying that you divide to get back to the normal state. But in this case,
Okay.
if you are in this one, right? So even if you had a previous one as a multiplication operator, the previous operator. So this is our previous operator, right? And your
Yeah.
previous value is 3. Okay. But if you look at this value, like it is 3 to 6,
We
6
are at the
plus
plus
6,
sign.
12, and 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your actually value so far was 8, okay, and then you are actually at a plus sign, right?
Uh,
So you are at the plus sign. The current operator is plus, and your current value is 2. Okay, so what you are going to do, you have this multiplication and 3 of the previous. So you cannot divide 8 by 3 in this case, right?
yeah.
We won't do that. So the only time I try to use my previous result is when I'm trying to uh, incorporate a multiplication operand. So as you said, till when I add 2, I have my result as 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when now you add 2, you get 10. Now
Okay.
coming to this one, 2 into 3. Let me add it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now coming to this multiplication, I would see what is my last operand. So here it is plus. So first thing I do is I do this 10 minus 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I get something. I get 8.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
And
now the
then you
next
use 2 into
I
3. Yeah.
multiply these two.
Yeah, I think
Why are
that.
you doing this minus? I didn't get. I'm not getting this part. 10 minus 2, 8.
Restore this value.
He's trying to restore it to the previous term, so where he can use this current operator.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. I think, okay, then if it should pass, right? If it's passing this test case, then it should pass all the test cases, I would say. So if there is something, it might be a corner test case.
Yeah, this one I'm trying to incorporate the third example. Multiple digit.
Okay. If you have 10 into 5, okay. 10 minus 5, okay.
One problem in this case is like when you're trying with all the possible like numbers, at some point you get 0, 5. Did you handle that?
But you can handle that, right? 0, 5. You can always look for the previous or the first digits as zeros.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm pointing. Maybe because
You can say an invalid and return from there. You don't go ahead in that case.
yeah, if you got 0, 5, then you shouldn't consider that. Yeah,
Yeah, that is the only thing you have to take care.
yeah. In this case, I was thinking that would be. Like,
Yeah,
Sorry,
that
can you
would be a
read?
normal way of doing it.
Why to ignore this 0, 5?
So if you see anyway, it's a invalid number, right? 0, 5.
Okay.
0, 5 should be an invalid number because you are losing that because you could have used 0 with the other digit. Anyway, you have to
1.
break down all of them. You cannot break down it like this. They have not mentioned, I think so, about it, right?
10 minus 2. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, even if you use it that way, and
Yeah,
yeah,
just use with addition.
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So we can just use it with addition because we cannot ignore it because every output has all the digits in the number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either you
So we can
concatenate
just
it or
just add or subtract like that if it's zero.
Okay. So if it is failing in some test case, then yeah, you might think about it. But or else if it is, if you can use it and just as a pre to some number, then it should be fine. A prefix to some number. And if you're still able to achieve the target, then it should be okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So we have a. So do you want to share any of your Dilip or Harshit, whatever your implementation was?
No, it's not even complete.
Okay. Okay. No problem. So yeah, we want to go ahead with your implementation
I
session.
have, but yeah, I've gone through discussion and let's see some. So it's like yesterday, like, I mean, this is the, what do you say? Mm. So it's a DFS function that I am calling on the, I mean, passing the initial index total and the previous, what we are discussing. So these are the
Mm-hmm.
base conditions, right? If that is, if the entire string is over and your total equal to target, then just you append your solution in the this array, solution array. And
Okay.
now after that, what I'm going from J will run from I plus 1 to the length and take the substring every time. I mean I to J and so on.
Right.
And after that, I'm converting that substring to the integer.
Yeah.
And if if nums of I equal to 0, that means the first one itself is 0.
Yeah, the equivalent case. Okay.
Yeah, then you continue in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, again, we are and if candidate, I mean, if this turns out to be 0, then again we are calling DFS on the this SJ and your previous
Yeah.
and this one, and again
Yeah.
these are the
So
three
that
DFS.
line number 13 is for the first number,
Yeah.
right? So first number won't have any operators, right? So that is what the
Yes.
line number 13 is for. So you're actually getting one integer, passing that as a DFS, and then you come to this else condition.
Else statement. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
here
in
again,
the Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Like, I mean, candidate, and then all the on all the three operators, I'm just like, if it is a plus, then I'm adding total to that particular integer to this and passing whatever integer I have added. And if it is minus, subtracting. And in case of multiplication from total, I'm subtracting the previous whatever I've added. And this I didn't get, like, why they are adding previous add into D. That
Yeah, actually that is what they do right here. So the for the line 15 and 16, if you look for the dn minus d, which is being passed in the last parameter, which is supposed to be previous underscore add, right?
yeah.
So those are the two values what you are passing for, because your current operations are plus and minus. So that those values can be taken care in your multiplication when you come to that multiplication DFS, right? So you are actually using that previous add, which will be either minus or positive, right? And actually that is what this previous add multiplied by D. D is your current input, right? So
Yeah,
that is
whether it
what
is,
your, yeah. So,
so if
but
it is negative, we'll have product as negative, right?
yeah, so that is what it is. If it is negative, then you just multiply by your current value, and whatever you get from the previous add, so that will be your multiplication, right? But
Yeah.
before that, you need to subtract also whatever your previous add was, because the way Harshit was doing, right? So to go to the previous state, so you will have to subtract, and therefore you are subtracting previous add.
Yeah.
But
And
how?
Can we take this example of 2 plus 3 into 2? I think this is what matches to line 17. That the previous add is, then we are
yeah,
multiplying. Like if we were at this position where we are multiplying with 2, this is a tricky
right,
one.
yeah.
So
So
total,
if you can run through that, 2, 2, 3, 2, right?
Yeah.
right.
So if we take for the first line 13, you will be just dealing with the 2, right? And then you come for line 14. So in the line 14, for line 15, sorry, now that will be the first plus case. Okay, so if you go with the second output in that case, so you just add that, correct? So here what it will be is, in this, when you are passing at that time, first time it will be 2 plus 3.
So we have reached 5, and let's say we
So
reach
2 plus
17 with
3.
that 5.
So 2 plus 3, right? And then you are actually passing the D. D will be 3 in this case, correct?
Right.
So if you are passing this 2 plus 3, which will be 5 and then 3. Okay, and then you come back again. We just focus on this one for now, right?
Mhm.
So when you come back again in the DFS, and then you'll be coming for the line 17 at that time, because it's multiplication. We just ignore the minus and other for now. So
Right.
at that time, our total will be 5, right? The previous total. Total is equal to 5, and our previous add was 3, correct?
3. Yeah.
Yeah, so now if we look for this, the term, so 5 minus 3, right? And then plus our 3 is this one, and our current D will be 2,
Plus
right?
2. Yeah. Into 2. Yeah.
It will be 2. So 3 into 2. So what is going to be? This is going to be 2, because we are actually reverting back to this 2, right? and then we are actually multiplying this 3 with our current 2, which is this D, right? So it will be 2 plus 3 into 2 will be 6. So this will be 8. Okay. And then here actually, because for the previous add, you have to pass the value. So what is the previous term actually it means, right? So the previous term will be 3 into 2 only, correct? So that
Yeah.
you need this term because if you want to actually again somehow come to this state or whatever the previous state, you have to subtract that, right? So from that term. So therefore you have to maintain this previous add also. And therefore you push this previous add a year as 6 and then you push total as 8. But anyway, you are coming at the end and you are just comparing the total to be the target. So therefore this expression will be a valid expression and then you are actually storing that. So that is
So,
what we need to take care of for the multiplication. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so what I realized was that because we are now using it for multiplication, hence the last time which we have added it as an addition, or it could have been a subtraction also, that we need to remove. And how do we take care of whether it was addition or subtraction last time? Is that we would have passed D or minus D.
Right.
So if it was addition, we would have passed D, hence automatically this will take care of. Or if it was addition, it will be subtraction, it will be minus D. So by doing by doing minus previous add, we will effectively remove whatever happened last time, and then now instead of that multiply because of the BODMAS rule or the PEMDAS rule, right?
Right,
Like
right, right.
multiplication should get this is very tricky and this is very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, this implementation is very easy to understand also because other implementations are very bad though. But what you say before is correct. For the plus and minus, it's very easy. You just pass D and minus D. But in this case also, he's trying to pass for multiplication, trying to pass previous add into D. So 3 into 2. So whatever the terms are, like if it is 2 into 3 into 2 or 2 plus 3 plus 2, right? So every time either you pass 2 or if you pass the last term where you are encountering this positive or negative sign before that. So whole term actually needs to be subtracted, right? So that is a very good way of doing it.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
even
very
if there was a
explicitly done here.
divide, I think like all the divide would bring in decimals and all, but let's say there was a divide without decimal issue, then also we'd do the same thing for divide also.
I'm not sure though, because it might be more tricky. The reason they have not added division over here, I think that might be more different way of handling it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I never thought about it, but it's good you brought it here. Yeah. But at least multiplication is very difficult though. Yeah.
How will this line 17 will handle the previous multiplication? Like we said.
Okay. Okay, let's take an example in that case then.
Take some 4 into 2 into 3. We are at 2. We already multiplied 4 into 2, something 8.
Well, let me.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you are saying? So we say like 4 into 2 into 2, something like this.
Yeah.
And we have something. Oh, sorry. And we need to add something before that, 3 plus something like that.
Let's assume this is what we need to do.
Okay, so 3 plus 4 into 2 into 2, right?
Yeah.
So for in this case the total will be 3, right? Because now the total is 0. So first total will be 3 and D also will be 3. So when you come for the first multiplication, in this case it is 2, right? So it is 4, right? So when you come here, so your total which is T equals 3, right? And your previous add is equal to 3, right?
Yeah.
And so your total 3 minus 3 plus
Total would be 7.
I'm sorry.
Total would be 7, I think.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and
So
previous
we'll
would be
have to go back, right? So So again, you go to 4 here. So this will be 3 and this will be 7, right? And this will be 4. Okay. So this will be 7 and this will be 4. So in this case, if this is 7 minus 4, okay, 7 minus 4, and then you have 4, and the current will be 2, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you are subtracting this 1. So you will have 3 plus 8, which is 11. So your total now will be, so now the total will be 11. And the previous add will be 4 into 2, right?
Right.
So previous add will be 8. Correct. So now you are done with this. Then you come to again multiplication. The same thing you come here. And now if you do the same, if it is t is 11 minus 8. Okay, 11 minus 8 plus 8 into 2, right? So 11 minus 8 will be 3, right? And then 8 plus 2 will be 10. So this will be 13.
16.
826. 8 to the 16, sorry.
Yeah.
So this will be 19, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that the value 4 to the 8 and 16? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually it maintains this term, right? Every time when you do the pre-add. Correct. So whatever the number of multiplications are, it keeps on adding over here. And that is the reason when you go back, you get this term previous add, whatever it is plus minus from wherever it is coming. And if you just subtract from the total, so you are completely removing this whole term before you hit any plus or minus, you know, and then you can actually use your total and the previous add combinations like this, the way he's doing it here. And then you can arrive at this, the legitimate expression. Yeah, but this is very good explicitly implemented. Yeah, this is very important, the line number 70.
So subtraction we are doing just to take care of precedence, right?
Subtraction is almost same like addition.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shang, one thing, where are we handling the fourth case?
Fourth is which one?
This example 3 case. 10
Example.
minus 5 1, where we are taking
Oh,
multiple.
concatenation of characters, right?
Yeah.
11, line 11.
He is doing it when he's actually doing the for loop on line number 8, right? So actually he's taking his value s, he's taking from the range I to j.
I to j, yeah.
Yeah, so that is what he keeps on incrementing it. And I think this line number 18, which is DFS 00, is to handle the corner case like example 4, correct?
Yeah, in case if you have like this, both the zeros connected together itself, like your target itself is 0, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. This line 18 is the one what you actually call the DFS function. Okay. Sorry. My bad.
18 I'm calling
You are starting from there.
On this line number 11, like if num of I is equal to 0 and s is not equal to 0. So
He's trying to find that invalid case, 0, 5.
this one 1 plus 0, 5, if you do, that is an invalid one, right?
Yeah, although I don't know why 1 multiplied by 0.5 could have been an answer.
No, but 0, 5 is not a valid number, no. Like according to them.
they don't want leading 0. Right?
But they have not mentioned though. Yeah.
They haven't mentioned, but 0, 5 is same as 5, right?
Yeah, but then it is still valid. So 1 into 0, 5 should be okay, right?
0, 5 won't lie between 0 to 9, right? According to like
No, that is only the digits, right? 0 to 9.
Actually, one thing came up to my mind. Can you please scroll down a little bit on example 3?
Sure.
Example 3.
Okay.
In this, why is 1 multiplied by 5 plus 0 not an answer?
Sequentially, you have to go, right?
1
Okay.
plus?
Because we have to go sequentially only. Yes.
Yeah.
But even 1 plus 0 plus 5 is not there.
Yeah.
6 it will become, no, 1 plus 0 plus 5.
Oh, sorry, multiplied.
Oh, 1 into 0. Okay.
1 into 0.5, right? 1 into
Yeah.
0.5 should be the target. Yeah, that should work.
Yeah, that's working here.
No, but that should have been a part of that output.
Which
Right?
one? Which one?
So in this example 3, he should have also had 1 multiplied by 0.5.
So
That would be a legitimate one, right?
ignoring leading zeros.
Yeah, he's actually removing, but for this case, the one in the first case of first output of example 3, 1 into 0 is considering 0 not to be an invalid case.
Yeah.
So
I
he's
think that-
using 0 as a number, but he's not using 0.5 as a number.
Right.
The number which are with the leading zeros. Yeah.
Single zero you can use, but any leading zero you can't use in a number.
Okay. But as he mentioned it in the example. Yeah. So we are assuming it, right? So
Yeah, I think.
because there is no problem in having that, right? If I could also have something like 1 multiplied by 0.5, and this will be 5 by target, right?
No, but how will you?
Yeah, I understood.
Not
You are
allowed.
considering this as a illegal word,
Illegitimate.
illegal number. But if they have not mentioned it, I could use. What most bad thing would happen at the end? I would say, okay, my target is something weird, and I'll just ignore it. But here the target matches. Yeah, but it's okay. It might be very hard in other test cases. Therefore, they are avoiding it here. Yeah.
So Shashank, the second for loop, line number 8.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, not the second one. This is something which is taking care of this, right?
You are talking.
The loop on line number 8 for loop.
Okay.
This is where you are taking care of multiple digits, right?
Yeah.
So the
What are
solution,
you? Go ahead.
Go
the
ahead.
solution they have done is they have considered this to be as a fourth operator. And just like we have 3 operations here, plus, minus, and star.
Concatenation.
Yeah, just sliding one step ahead as a fourth operator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that saves this loop.
Fourth operation, you can say.
Which one?
I mean, he's telling like 1 0. So this is where we are taking care of that, no, concatenation part.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you're saying for if not of candidate, what are the values that you're trying to eliminate here on line 12?
Yeah, first time when you hit 1, you don't have any operator, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Only the
so
first number.
only first number you'll have, no?
Mm-hmm.
Because operator will have, then you'll have 2 operands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I
all
didn't
else
catch that fourth operator concept. What is that fourth?
Fourth is saying this one, like we have plus, addition, and into, I mean multiplication. Fourth is like concatenation. This he's telling like in 1 0. This is also kind of operator only now, concatenating 1 and 0 and minus.
Can I take an example?
Right.
Like 1 plus 2 into 34.
Just a sec. What is the example?
1 plus 2 into 34.
1 plus 2 into 34.
Yeah. How can we pass?
But what is your target? That depends, no?
So I think he wants to use.
You want just that expression.
Yes. Yeah.
Forget about the target.
What we do is when we reach onto 3, we multiply that particular number by 10. That becomes 30, and then we add your current number. That becomes 34. That is how
But-
we handle it.
No, but
In
what
string
he's
you can
saying is
directly
if you solve this example like 1 plus 2, and then when you are at the multiplication operator, and then you consider only the one number, which is 3, You perform all your evaluations, and then you want to consider 34. So I would say you consider 34 the same way what you do for 3, because you are doing a recursion, right? So you will come back to the previous state where you had done 1 plus 2. And then at that time, because you are actually coming again for the next number, next 2-digit number, which is 34. So it will be just your D value, which was on line number 10, will be 34. That's the only
Okay.
different thing. Yeah.
That's how Shashank is doing. So I
Right.
was
Okay.
saying that you try
Yeah.
to incorporate this 34. So when we consider the fourth operator, what we do is we multiply 3 by 10. Uh, that gives us 30, and then we add our current number. So that gives us 34. I mean, this is how they are using that particular extra digit.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not an sort of operator, but he's actually,
Yeah, dummy
making
operator.
the 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, yeah, you can say that, right?
Yeah, but I found this to be a good, real tricky question. The fourth
Yeah,
case
yeah.
makes it.
Especially if we would not have multiplication, then this answer, this problem would have been either medium or easy.
Easy. Yeah.
The fourth case, especially, I mean, and that zero elimination of that 0, 5 thing.
Yeah.
Or something.
So if this was not like for the first number, if we, because he's considering the first number, therefore there are some complications in his code. But if you can consider the first number very separately, like use it in a different function in a loop of all your numbers, because you again have to increment the number, and then you call this recursive function. Okay, so then that becomes slightly easier because you handle the one number before any operator, the first very number, as a different function, and then you call this recursive function. So you might eliminate some of the things like on line 13, so you don't need that line 13, 12 and 13. But this is a good way to do it, because you might actually encounter this issue when you're working, and you might not be able to come up with this idea of 12 and 13. So if you do that separately in a different function and then call this DFS from there, it will be slightly okay, So you can keep the DFS only for operator as a prefix to any number always.
So where was it asked? I think Google only might be right.
No, but at least we come to know some, high level,
Concept, yeah.
implementation concepts of this, right? So if we get to a division, as Vibor was saying, right? So then
Yeah.
we could actually expand our thoughts on that and see if we can apply that there.
Yeah, we have discussed this question, like when division was there. I don't remember the question, but I remember Bhavesh explaining that part, this precedence
Really?
part. Yeah.
Okay.
In some of the session, we have some other question, but on the same lines.
Okay. Okay.
In the solution, they explain some backtracking method. Is it the same or something different?
These are backtracking only.
This is backtracking, yes.
Go to the power edge.
Is even the solution one same?
In the solution, oh yeah, you mean to say the problem statement solution, right? It is slightly tricky to understand, if you look at the problem statement. Yeah, but to some extent they have explained the part what Shashank has done, but his implementation on line 17 is much better than what they have shown over there.
Yeah.
But the diagrams, whatever they have represented,
Illustrative.
they are good actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can move to next.
Can you share this code if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. Discord, I'll share. So our next is coloring border. So a two-dimensional grid of integers, and each value in the grid represents the color of the grid square at that location. Two squares belong to the same connected component if and only if they have the same color and are next to each other in any of the four directions. The border of a connected component is all the squares in the component which are four directionally adjacent to a square. So we'll be given the location R0, C0 in the grid, and a color will be given. We have to color the border of the connected component of that square and return the final grid. So here if you see on the border 1 1 horizontally and then vertically one more 1 is there, and color given to us is 3, and we have to start from the 0 0. So since they 1 and 1 1 all these are connected, same color they are connected, so we are painting them with 3 3, and for the last one only one color we are left with 2. And coming to this again we can see 2 2. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
No, actually, yeah, there is some noise from my end. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's okay. No issue. So again 1 2 2. So we can diagrammatically we can do. So these three are connected. So all of them are painted with this 3 3 and this 3, and yeah, we are done. So final matrix will be your 1 3 3 and 2 3 3. This will be right. And
But that bottom right to 2, that is not a part of the connected component, right? As the description says.
bottom right, you are saying this one.
Yeah, I might be getting something wrong.
I think
I
this
think
since they are same in number, that's why they are one of the connected.
Can you scroll up a bit?
Sure, sure, sure. Just for a second. Yeah.
Or more. I mean, to the description part.
Oh, it's called description.
4 directionally adjustable.
If they have same color, then they are connected.
Okay. And in any of
So in that case, 3 3 were connected like that. What you say? 2 2 all. I think voice is breaking. Yeah. And regarding constraints, like the other constraints here. So how do we approach here?
So in example 3, why is the middle color 1, yet it should have been 2, right?
Okay, let's.
No, no, actually, we have to only color the border of the square.
Yes, yeah.
So,
we'll
yeah, the one, the number 1 at row 1 and column 1 is inside the square. Yeah.
yeah.
Square, you mean the connected component or the actual square?
Where
So
is
actual
like
square, it yeah, it could be more, right? Yes, anything. Yeah, sorry, good.
no, I mean that's correct what you're saying. Like
So this sounds like a normal DFS, right? Like start from like whatever given row column, and then if it's a border, keep coloring,
I
and
just
then
take
look
off
for remaining DFS for all the 4
directions.
connected ones. Yeah.
But then how do you find it is a border? Because now here the border is you are considering the border of that grid, right? But if it was something inside,
So border is like row 0 or row maximum or column 0 or column max, like that, right?
but in this case also, if we had another column, so before the first column, which where the values would have been zeros, and the one what is representing on the screen, the red color. So then actually we don't have to consider those zeros, right? So this 1 1 will be a border with the 0th, the previous column, something like that. I mean to say,
So
like
it's
if we
not
had
the
a
border
square
of
inside.
matrix. It's not the border of the entire thing.
Yeah, if it would be in something like a bigger one, okay, something like this. So we had 0 0 0 zeros, and then we had 0 0 0, and then we had this 1 1 1 1, 0, and then 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then something like this. So this is the border in this case, right? So, but if we just always consider the border of the grid, then this would be the border of grid.
Oh, so they want to color only the border.
Of the 1, 1 array, yeah.
Yeah, but
And if,
anyways, it's 0, right? Even if we go there, it won't be colored. It has to be 1 to be colored, right? It is not the connected component.
yeah, so that is what, like, how do we find these ones, like, especially this one, if we take a DFS? Because you are saying, like, these are all ones, right? You keep on going. When you are in a DFS, you are in a particular node at that time, your value will be 0. So are you storing the parent value also? How do you differentiate that, That is what. I understand what you're saying, and I was also thinking in that direction, but that is a thing which struck me, and I was slightly not sure how to address that. Because, when you come from 1 to 1, this is 1, 1. So even if you ignore this, okay, you come to this 1, okay, your parent is 1, okay. But then you actually go only when your parent is 0, sorry, your current node is 0 and this is 1, but you are already on your current node 0, but you are not at the parent. So how do you address that? So how do you go back and, make that as a different color? Maybe I'm not clear though, but yeah. So I was thinking
I
that
think,
way, yeah.
I
To be
think
honest,
question is not very clear to me, maybe. Uh, so, so for example, they're giving the row and a column, and then so whatever color, so if it's, so suppose they give a row and column, which has the value 1. So we have to look for all the ones that are connected to that one, like connected component, and and color it with the given color if they are not, if they are on the border. Is that right?
Of the same
Yeah.
color.
Yeah, so in this case, if our color was supposed to be 2, and our this is our starting point, which is now the old color is 1, right? And we have to actually color with this new color, right? So which is 2. So you start from here, you go here, but then when you actually move from year to year, you know that this is a border, correct? So how do you keep coloring? Either you keep coloring it from, you come from here always, like make this 2, make this 2. But in this case, you are actually making this also 2, right?
For every element, if any of the 4 directions, if it is not 1, then that's a border, right? That's a border element, right?
Okay. But then it is, in that case, then you are doing BFS?
Yeah, anything can work. Like BFS or DFS, we visit all the elements, all the ones, and see if for all the, check for all the elements whether any all the 4 directions it is 1 or not. If it is not 1 in any of the direction, then that means it's a border element.
Oh, okay. So you look for this. Actually, you see all the 4, it is not. So this you don't color. And then you come for this, and then you say, okay, this is one which is actually not 1. And then you color this one.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we were at the very end, okay, and then we had all these ones also, right? So in that case, what do you look? Because here you see this is 1, this is 1, this is 1, right? But these is not a valid condition because you don't have any unknown, what is undefined rows and columns, correct?
That can be case. Like maybe it's there is no element or different element in that. Like it can
No,
be the
no.
different element.
Okay, so if you are at the border of your grid, so then you can consider that as a special case.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So if you are a border of the grid, then you always color that one. Okay. Yeah, that should work. But then you'll always have to go in your DFS in that all your neighbors, you find out all the neighbors if none of them are of the same color. If any one of them okay, all of them are of the same color, you don't do anything. You just go in a DFS again, correct?
Yeah.
Or then you handle that in the else part, or maybe when you are actually backtracking something like that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Um,
So Dilip,
okay.
go ahead.
No, I had a question on the example that you had over here. So with the borders being 0 and inside with all ones, if we say row 0, 0, no, 1, 1 is going to be a different color. What all is it going to color in the end? All the border, is it?
Yeah, all the border. So
But
all
what
the
about
one
the
one
ones
ones.
that are beneath it?
Sorry,
What about the ones which are beneath it? Like, okay,
you
so I
don't
think this
color
is
them.
your example, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, whatever. 1, 2,
Okay,
3.
so in this case, okay, let me draw that again. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm drawing it. I don't know if you can see.
Sure. Yeah, it is. I'm seeing it.
So let's assume we want to color 1, 1, which is this, right? This component.
Inner one.
Yeah. Right? So now in this
Hmm.
case, what gets colored?
So your line, okay, row 1 and from column 1 to column 3 will be colored, right? And your row 2, your column 1 and column 3 will be colored.
So all of this, you mean?
I think all the borders, no.
Only the border, yeah, that one, and yeah, that one, correct.
Because see, these are connected, right? Like had there been a 2 here, no, not 2, sorry, just say some 4 or something over here, then it wouldn't have gotten colored. And then in that case, all of this would have been colored, right?
Okay, but if your square was very big, and then you had many squares and they were just connected by a single row in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then some of the cases you would have a different way. Here it is a very perfect square or maybe a rectangle, right? But
Okay.
if you imagine a very big grid,
Okay.
so then there might be cases something like that, right? So you'll have to actually visit each and every,
Element over there.
yeah. But yeah, it has to be connected. But then how do you find the connectivity when you are at a particular, you are in a DFS and then you have to find connectivity somewhere else,
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So basically, like it's not just, I mean, like at any point, we need to find the total connected components that we have in the graph.
Yeah.
Well, if you are doing the DFS way, you don't even bother of the connected components, right? You just go to and look for a particular node, and then you look at its neighbors. If they are all ones, you say it is an inner node, right? Then you move to the next DFS node, right?
Yeah.
So you, as what Dilip was explaining, you just go to any node where you find at least one of its neighbor is not of that color, and then you color that particular node. So that will
Hmm.
be very simple, understanding or maybe a simple way to implement it.
Okay.
But then it will take care of the whole thing.
Cool. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so anyone has an implementation in this, the way Dilip was explaining?
Dilip has like,
No, I don't have it.
okay. Okay, then I'll share mine.
Okay.
So mine is like the normal DFS. Like I'm taking a visited array as your not array, visited as a set, scene set, and calculating the rows and columns. And I'm calling DFS on your starting, what do you say, are not initial whatever position they have given you. So if you have already seen that coordinates, then we'll return true. And this is like checking the base conditions. Base condition is like you can say if your this row is greater than 0 and less than m means rows, number of rows here, and this is y is lying between your given columns, and if the current grid that you are trying, the current cell that you are trying to look, and if that is equal to, what do you say, the original R naught C naught, then we return false in that case.
Yeah, so you're
Right.
just looking for if it's not the border of the grid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that coordinate I'm adding to the visited array, and then calling the DFS like in all the 4 directions and checking if that value is less than 4.
Okay, so in this case, you are actually adding all the Boolean values which are true.
Yeah.
So then you're converting it to integer, which will be 1 for each. And then if all of them are 1, then it is 4.
Yeah.
Right. So if it is less than 4, you mean so, it means that it is a border.
Border.
Okay. Yeah, this is good.
Is Python converts true to 1? Is that how?
Yeah, it will convert implicitly.
Interesting.
So how is this less than 4 thing working? How do you decide on this basis that it's a border?
Because any of its number, any of its DFS, if doesn't return true, so it means that one of its value of that particular cell is not the same color as this color. So it will return false. So it will be 0.
My 0, yeah. 0 or minus 1.
But what if everything was false? Like if it was 0, that means it was not part of the. It's not connected at all then.
So if it is not, okay, yeah, that is a good thing. But I think he handles that on the line number 7.
7.
He looks for the grid x equals grid xy equals grid r0 c0. So if they are not of the same color, he still returns false. Yeah, but what he's saying, if you return false and if they are 0, then it's still this line 11 is valid. Then you will color it, right?
If it returns false, yeah. No.
That never happens, right? Like we are the first time in line 13 we are calling with the correct color. So we are never going to be on the wrong color and get 0.
So max you will be 1, 2, 3 something. You want to come to 0, yeah.
Yeah.
Really, I'm still not clear on that.
Yeah.
So because if you have a color of the same color, then only you come inside. But I don't see that condition in this code.
Somewhere, I think that is taken care in line 7 itself, right?
No, even if you take that in that, but your value of DFS will be 0 worst case, right? So he's saying that if all the value on the line 10 are all zeros, it will be still less than 4, right?
Yeah, then.
So then still you're coloring that. I'm sure that you might have passed all the test cases. It might have taken care of, but how it is representing in the code, I'm not able to get that. Yeah.
Now
that's a valid case, right?
I'm sorry.
Like so, for example, R0 C0 is 1, and it has all zeros in all the directions. Okay, so in this case we get 0, right, in line 10.
Yeah, all the 4 directions are 0.
So now there is only one element, and which is a border. So we need to update that with something else, like 2.
But if you are on this 0, the 1 0, actual 0, you know, the one on the top of this cell, okay, and you come here, so you come here and then you don't see that on line 6, it's not in the scene. They'll come inside that if, right?
You will never reach this 0, right? We are calling with this index as first element. So when you're calling DFS with 0, this will directly return false. when the DFS call went with this element, you will never reach to this line 9, 10, 11.
Because the reason is that those are its neighbors, right? So anyway, it is going to that neighbor.
Going, but in that call, it will return at line 8. It will never go call its neighbors again.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, because it is just going to the neighbor and it will return false. Okay, it will just return false and it's not going to go and call its neighbor. So therefore, we are not going to hit on this condition. Oh, right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Kind of tricky. Like after you tell, it's looks okay, but it was not what I could think of.
Yeah, because I'm used to C++, so the syntaxes are very easy to follow for me. Yeah.
It's
So
everything like 6-line, 5-line versus what I would write in Java or C#.
yeah, right.
So in this case, like if all the neighbors were of different colors already, right? Which means they are not a part of the same component,
Yeah.
right? So in, where are we handling that? Like where are we seeing that if it's
If they are not of the same color, right? I mean, they doesn't belong to what is it? Same component, right?
yeah. I mean
So
there is that.
actually, yeah, he is doing at line 7. So he's
That is only
looking.
Huh?
Yeah, because on line 7, he's checking if it is not of the same color, he will return false. Right. So on line 10, that false will be when he returns this call of DFS, that will be 0. So he will keep on adding all those zeros.
For all
But
directions.
yeah, but because he cannot proceed ahead in those cells because they are not a part of the legitimate connected component, therefore he is not going further ahead in the DFS.
But isn't the second part is like anything which is on the border, on the boundary of the grid, also should be colored? I thought that was irrespective of whether it's, or I don't know if I got it wrong. I mean, I don't, yeah.
No, you're saying is correct. If it is on the grid border, that also should be colored as with the new
Yeah.
color. Yes, Shashank, right. So that you are also handling, right?
Yeah.
So that also is on the line 7.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Oh, I think he's checking on the line 7 for X is less than or equal to M.
Within the rows
Y is
limits.
less than or
Oh,
okay.
between the,
Yeah.
okay, you're not seeing the border here. Okay. Yeah.
Not of I'm doing. Generally, we do the other way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is very compact. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
That's Python, yeah. So therefore it's tricky to understand. Correct. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
So we can switch to next then.
Okay.
Okay.
Or
So
else
this
I
is
can
like
quickly share one
Sure.
C++
Yeah.
if you want. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
But I am not sure. Okay, this is slightly more. Code is too much, but
No, it's good. Yeah.
so I think. Okay, so this is a DFS call. Okay, I'm using, and this is my function, entry function. This is the grid and then R0, C0 and your color. Then this DFS I'm entering in the DFS and I will explain about this logic later. Okay, so in the DFS, this is the grid, these are the two coordinates and this is the color which my current color is. Okay, so when I come here, in the DFS, this color is the one which is my current color, right? And okay, where did I store my new color? Okay, so yeah, so I'm not storing this new color here. I'm just looking at my current color, right? So I just look for all the border cases, and if any of my row column is out of the range, and if it is not of the same color also, I'm returning. Okay. And if I come here, it means that it is any of the color in the whole of the rectangle, all the
Green, yeah.
connected components actually I'm coloring with. mm, I'm just negating that color, I'm just making it minus with that color, whatever color currently I have. So if it is my one, I'll make it minus. So I'll make it for all the nodes of the connected component. I'm not actually segregating on its border. Then I do it for all the DFS. Okay. And then when I do a backtracking, okay. So at that time when I'm doing a backtracking, I look for if it is greater than, if it is a legitimate row, if it is a legitimate column, and if the color, actually if it is absolute value, so if it is of the same color, all the neighbors I check for that. And if they are same, then I make that color set it to its original value. Right. So here what I'm doing is I'm actually setting all the values of the nodes which are not a part of my border. So that is what I'm doing over here.
Yeah, the 4 direct neighbors, right?
Right, the 4 direct neighbors. So because any one of them have, all of them, its neighbors has the same color, it means it is inside and it's not the border. So I just restore it back. And then when I come out of this DFS, in this two for loops, I'm traversing the whole grid again, looking for wherever I see my grid value is lesser than 0. Because I've already set all the negative values of all my borders to negative value. And therefore, when it is 0, yeah. So when it is 0, I'm just setting it to color, or else I'm just retaining my original color.
Right.
Yeah. So that is what the.
And where are you stopping? Like when you find a different color, how are you handling that?
So this is the way, right? Yeah, I just return it from here. Yeah. So whenever I don't see any of the same color also, just return from here.
Yeah, so this is standard DFS, like other finding the number of islands or connected components, except the trick was this line 14 to 16, where you also check whenever you get a number, you check all 4 directions again and then decide to color or not color. Otherwise, everything else is similar to
right. Yeah, it's a standard DFS. Yeah, you said it right. This is the only different thing. And at the outside, I'm doing it this way. Yeah, so I understand the DFS the standard way. So therefore, I try
this
to
is
do
like
it.
my standard way of thinking in templatized. Like whenever you have this connected component scenario, think in this fashion. I've seen 3 or 4 problems like this. It's coloring border, now connected components, number of islands.
Yeah. Rotten oranges. I don't know. I think that.
Which one? Oranges?
Rotten oranges are there? No. Some problems like.
Okay. I haven't looked at that. Maybe it is similar.
Yeah.
Cool.
So but the Python code was more compact, but yeah, you have to write more code here, but it looks straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah. Next is like escape the ghost. So is a Pac-Man game. We are starting at origin and our destination is this. So there will be several ghosts on the map, and ith ghost will start from this coordinate. So in every turn, you and the ghost simultaneously may move in all the 4 cardinal directions, going from previous point to a new point, one distance away. So you escape if and only if you can reach the target before any ghost reaches you. And if you reach any square, including the target at the same time as ghost, it is counted as an escape. So we have to return to if you can escape it. So for this, they have directly, if you directly reach the destination, this target itself at 1, while the ghost will be located at your 1, 0 and 0, 3, then in that case, they can't catch you, right? no way to catch up with us because we are, I mean, directly reaching at the destination at the time one itself.
Okay, so if the ghost and you reach at the same time, still it is false, correct?
False, yeah.
Still because he is attacking you. And if the ghost reaches before you, then also it is false for obvious, right?
Yeah. Only like if I reach before him, before the ghost.
Okay.
So if we move towards the east, then all the ghosts will move towards the east.
No.
Come again, what are you saying?
If we move towards the east direction, one step, then all the ghosts will move one direction towards the east or something.
Yeah, so well, I was thinking this problem to be like a BFS problem. So the ghosts are also dynamic and you are also dynamic, right? So you are also trying to find a shortest path from your position to the target, and so ghost also will do the same thing.
Yeah, I think get the shortest path from your position to target and the shortest path from ghost position to target, and whichever is less wins.
Right. Yeah, so if you are lesser, then you win. But if you are equal to any of the ghost or greater than the ghost, then you lose.
Ghost wins. Yeah.
So my I was saying whosoever has less wins. So whether the ghost wins or you win. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the ghost wins, you lose. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so then the BFS should work in this scenario, right? So you start as your target as one BFS, then you also start for the BF for all those ghosts. And then you have a separate, what you say, a BFS function, and you just pass on the parameters, the starting parameters, and internally you calculate the shortest path. Okay, just return the number, and you just verify that with your other ghost. I think I think it might be a brute force, right?
yeah, min of all the ghost is less than or is greater than your
Yeah,
shortest path.
my shortest path. Yeah.
Yeah, so two things, like how are we neglecting that case where they can meet somewhere in between also?
Well, I was thinking like if you target your end target every time, each one. So if you whatever the path you go to the end target, even if they are supposed to meet at in before that, it will still meet at the target, right? Only thing is I'm extra working, and it might not be the very efficient way of doing it, but still I have some solution. And if I meet before I meet the target, so I'm surely going to lose at the end also.
Right. If after that the path would be the same.
Yeah, it would be the same.
So if you see example 2, right? The path for the ghost is probably just one, versus in our case it takes two. The example 2.
Can you scroll up a bit, Shashank?
Oh, okay. So we don't. So since here, like the BFS of the ghost is just one, that's why, like in according to the way you're saying, that's why we would just end up returning false.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there could be a case where if you take the shortest path to the target, maybe you will get caught by the ghost. But if you take some other path, you won't get caught.
Huh.
It depends on the distance.
So yeah, but always I will take the shortest part to the target, right? Everyone has to take the shortest part to the target.
But what if you take the shortest path and you get, there is no way you can avoid the ghost. So I'm not taking the shortest path. I'm taking some other, maybe the longest path. I'm not getting caught by the ghost.
That won't
Then
be
return true.
But your ghost will reach before you because you still have to reach the target, correct?
Yeah. But ghost can't stay in the target position. Even it has to move.
No, no, it's not like that. See, once you reach the target, you're done. So he will remain there always. So you assume it that way, okay?
Yeah.
So it's not
I
like
was
ghost is going to go away from the target. He ends at the target. He's there, so your target is used by the ghost.
But what
So
if,
when you
like, I still get, like, that is correct, but there's another option that ghost was minimum distance from ghost is, let's say, 20, and the but and for you it is 18, but there is a point in between. There would be a, if you both follow the shortest path, then there is a overlap, and hence you are caught. However, you take the 19 route, and that has no overlap. Is that what you're referring to? Something like that.
But see, whenever if your path shortest part is 18, so you still have a shortest path to reach to the target. Right. So the other path, like I understand in the BFS you will have other nodes also which are actually going to overlap with the coast. But your shortest path will reach before you overlap with the coast. Right, because you are terminating your BFS before you even encounter that condition.
I think the distance, the type of distance we use also is important here. Yeah, so one thing we are clear that both of the host and the person, they would be moving directly towards the target.
They'll be adding it. Come again?
So they would directly be moving towards the target.
Yeah, sure. And whosoever reaches first wins the match.
Yeah, but if you say like what happens if the ghost starts moving to you instead of moving to the target, it might be easier for it to move to you, right? But will that case arise? It might be, right? If it is 0, 0 and he's on 1, 0 and your target is like 8, 0, so he can come to you before you actually go to the target.
I think the
Yeah,
host would not try that.
yeah, that is what we are assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to
But
explain that mathematically.
okay.
So let's say
Okay, yeah, thanks, Vibhav. I dropped. Okay.
Yeah.
this is the person,
Uh-huh.
and this is the host, and this is the target.
Okay.
So, as you said, let's assume that the host tries to catch the person. So,
Mhm.
my target would be, sorry, my person would try to move on this path, right? 80, this one,
Mhm.
because we want to reach the target. Now, let's say this host is trying to catch this person. So, let's say this host meets this person somewhere here. Let's name this as N. Okay. So, basically, now this GM. Okay, let's first write 80 as this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got the point what you're trying to make. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
I'll try to use the triangle inequality.
Mm.
So sum
80
of two sides greater than.
AM and plus MT. Okay, so we can write this as AM is that this part.
AT is equal to AM plus M.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this can also be written as Okay, so this now in this triangle GMT, we have this GM plus MT. You know, okay. GM plus MT is greater than or equal to this GT, right? This is the
Yeah.
triangle
Yeah.
inequality. Now, if you notice, this AM and GM are the same because we start at the same time and we are meeting at a point, right?
Yeah.
Hey, AM and GM cannot be same.
Yeah, that's
They
why we
won't
are
be.
meeting.
They won't be equal, right?
No. No. You start at the same point and then you meet. So we have the same distance, right?
No, but it's not written constant. What like in what way they are doing, right? Speed depends on speed, right?
Okay.
No. We
Okay.
are
He's saying that
moving.
assume it. Okay. Assume that. Okay.
We are moving one step at a time, right? So let's say
Okay.
A and G start at t equal to 0.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And let's say we meet at some t equal to k. So the distance travel would be same, no? Because the speed is same. We are taking one step at a time.
Okay.
Right? So this GM plus MT, I can replace this by AT.
Yes.
Now, if you notice, this inequality tells us that my host would prefer this path than any other path because the host would try to reach to the target as early as possible.
How did you put that greater than equal to?
So this triangle inequality, the sum of two sides is always greater than the third side.
Greater than third side. Okay.
So GM plus in this triangle GMT, if we take two sides GM and MT and add them, so that sum would always be greater than GT.
GT, yeah, that's fine.
Right. So now this GM plus MT is same as AT because AM is equal to GM.
But how did you trace this path as a triangle? Like,
No, but
I mean,
this,
how?
what else would it be? Like this would be a straight line, and
It would have been quadrilateral, right?
this is the common
Like
point,
one.
right? This is where they would intersect the target.
Okay.
So he's trying to prove that you will always reach earlier than the ghost in the
So
shortest
what I'm
path,
trying
right?
to prove is that both these ghost and the person would move in this direction only. Like the ghost would
That,
not try to take this path.
correct. That would be not efficient for him. Yeah.
Yeah. So both of them would try to move in this way, and then we deduce that we calculate the distance, and if the distance, if this AT is shorter than GT, then we can say that that person will reach the target.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so we can actually explain this one. So because interviewer might ask why you are assuming that ghost also is going to reach the target as the quicker one. And the way I
Yeah.
think we were also pointed out, you also said, right? Why not you, Dilip also said, like why don't you bump into each other first, right? So ghost
Right.
will
So
do,
that's what I.
yeah, makes sense. So,
Yeah,
but now,
I
sorry,
was
go
asked this
ahead.
question in one of my interviews during my college
Or,
days.
oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I didn't get. What did you say?
So I was asked this question in one of my interviews during my college days.
Oh.
This
Wow.
this puzzle part, not the solution, not the code.
Uh, So you explained this, your understanding about the way you said, right? Yeah.
I could not
You-
explain mathematically, but I was
Uh-huh.
trying to make this point that both of them would try to move to the target. But he only explained me this way, like if you draw this diagram and like mathematically, he showed me.
Wow. So nice of you as well as him. At least it's very clear to us now. Because I was just assuming, okay, let's move to the shortest path because that is what the BFS says. Yeah, but this looks more, it add more weightage to the our explanation. Yeah. Yep. Thanks for sharing, Harshit. Yeah. Okay. So now we at least know that we can find an path using a BFS. But that would be O of n times the number of ghosts as well as the target, correct?
Yeah.
So we can have some efficient way of finding the distance.
Yeah, Manhattan
Or
distance.
is that okay? So, well, I'm not very clear about Manhattan distance.
They have like one step is Manhattan distance only, right?
But how do you ignore that normal distance we find? Like how I, because I am
I'm
using that distance only and I'm not getting that right.
I'll show
So
you.
what is
This
the
is
reason for
what
Manhattan?
the initial position and target difference. I mean, this is the Manhattan distance, right? Function definition, like how we calculate the what do you say Manhattan distance, right?
Right, right.
And just what I'm doing for every distance for the ghost, I'm calculating if the Manhattan distance, they should always be greater than this for every ghost. That's why I'm using all this here. If all of them are true, then only like it will return true.
So, well, I'm sure of how this Manhattan distance work.
Your Manhattan is like Manhattan town is there in US, right? Town or whatever, like
Oh, okay,
buildings will
okay.
be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll go
Yeah,
like this,
Manhattan is
like
New York, okay.
New York, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
across the buildings we measure like this. Again, next building will come. If next building is here, so what is distance from here to here? Then here to here. Again, if some other distance is there, like it's a coordinate difference. That's it. Without squaring anything, just a coordinate difference. I think it's based on the CCTV, like the structure, orientation of the building is in this way. That's why from there itself this Manhattan came distance.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like
So you
Euclidean, we
just
square it.
Yeah, but why do we use this distance here? Why not that Cartesian distance?
Distance because of one unit they are telling you. That's why. So just a difference between the what you say the initial and the target.
so Cartesian distance is what? I think he's almost explaining the same thing, right? So he's trying to go from one coordinate to other, and just adding those number of units because he's traveling at x on the x axis or on the y axis, and then he keeps on adding. So whatever is the shortest part, like if he wants to go in a diagonal, so he'll first go to the left and then go to top. Then again he'll go to the left and 1 unit to the top, 1 unit to the left and 1 unit to the top, right? So that is what
Top
you're trying to do, right? In that Manhattan.
Manhattan distance. Yeah.
Okay, so this should be also the same thing like a Cartesian distance because you are actually adding all the x's and
And
then you
y
are
axis.
adding all the y's, right?
Yeah.
So that actually gives you okay. So that
But
is what he call about.
I was
Uh-huh.
calculating using that Cartesian distance. I am not getting it right. They're not passing cases.
So what is the formula for Cartesian
Oh,
distance?
it's that x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square. Yeah,
Euclidean is same.
Oh,
yeah, Euclidean,
yeah.
right?
Oh no, but in that case, that won't be the right way because we are not finding the distance between the 2 points, right? We are actually here finding the levels, like the BFS way, right? There you are actually trying to find,
Distance between 2 points.
yeah, because this is a grid, right? So you go to the left, right, or top or bottom. You do not go diagonal in this case, correct?
And
So
Euclidean
if
can
you
give
were
for this.
allowed,
Yeah, go ahead. I was saying Euclidean can give this is distance also, right? But Manhattan will go like this and then this.
I see, I see.
yeah. So that Cartesian distance you can find only if you are allowed to go northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. Then you can use that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's diagonals you're talking, right?
Yeah, the
Northeast.
diagonals. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Euclidean
But
one always calculates the hypotenuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
this is
Yeah.
like
So
we are going along X and then along Y.
Yeah.
yeah. So that is what is Manhattan distance. Okay. Mhm. So you add the X and Y always, and then you reach the destination.
Yes.
Okay, because Manhattan has buildings, and then you have all those roads which are actually around the. They are also a form of grid, right? Therefore, you cannot go through the building, so you always go on the road. Yeah. So just find the shortest path. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So
So
buildings
this
there are
becomes
arranged
more
in this
easier.
way, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that building in Manhattan are arranged in this pattern only, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So in most of the cities, it will be arranged that way. So yeah, the Manhattan is a very good example. Yeah. Yeah. So then it actually comes. It's real and easy solution because you just instead of running on a BFS, you actually use this function. Just find the XY differences between those 2 points, and then you get your value, and then you look for that value compared with the ghost distances. Yeah, and then it is returned to our false. Yeah, and now it is very easy. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah. So we are calculating this target distance for every ghost and checking.
Okay, but you could have. So you are already storing it. Yeah, in the target distance, but you are actually calculating for the ghost. And yeah, I think this is the most efficient way because I was struggling on the Manhattan, and then I just gave over.
Yeah.
I just left it. Yeah, yeah.
Manhattan, Euclidean, and then one more what Cartesian, right?
Yeah. Because for BFS, I was thinking if I take a queue, then a single queue won't be sufficient. Then I was thinking of taking an array of queue. And then I said, okay, that's a very messy way of implementing. Then I thought, okay, maybe let's use just one function for BFS and then use it. But yeah, it is not the efficient way of doing it. Yeah.
In that case, yeah, array of Q means two queues.
Yeah, because I was, thinking use all the ghost also. For each and every ghost, you have a queue. And I was thinking, whenever the ghost first meets, at that time you return. You don't have to wait to the end. So I was just thinking on that line. So at every level, you see, check for each and every ghost position. No, that was a messy way of doing it. Yeah. Ultimately, I just left it, and
Yeah.
this is the best way to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Sure.
I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So
And this is a medium. They are saying, okay.
yeah.
I thought because your implementation it looked very easy, right? So it was
Yeah,
almost easy problem.
Yeah, but coming to this is a bit tricky.
bit hard.
Yeah, yeah, it was absolutely.
Yeah.
So you cannot stop the recording, right?
Yeah. Oh no, Deepak will stop it.
Deepak, are you listening? I think he might be out of his desk.
Not Dave.
Let's cancel the meeting.
Then we'll have to close the meeting. Yeah.
We'll have to tell him.
Oh, okay. Yep. Then thank you. Thank you,
Oh,
Harshit.
yeah,
Thank you,
Deepak is there.
Shashank.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Santosh. Thanks,
Yeah.
Harshit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Dilip.
Harshit.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.